All right.
Yes, 6:01.
All right. It being 6 p.m. on Monday, November 25th, 2024, I will call the meeting of the Freetown Conservation Commission to order. To anyone who cares, it is being recorded by the commission. Anyone else recording anything? No one else recording anything. We'll take that note. Okay, item number 1, request for certificate of compliance. 1A 35 Copacabana Road. As we all know, we went and did an examination of the area with Mr. Resendes. Does anyone have any comments they want to make?
I did submit a letter to Nicole from Holmes Engineering for the wetland. He had gone out, inspected it, and provided a letter to verify that the wetland replication area had been completed in substantial compliance of the order of conditions.
All right, Margaret, did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, all right. No one else have any comment? Any input? I'll entertain a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 35 Copacabana Road.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made,
I'll second it.
motion is seconded. All in favor, say aye. Margaret French?
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp?
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Motion passes. Second is 1B, 165 South Main Street. Again, we went there. There was Adeline had mentioned that there was some areas of the drainage swells that didn't appear to have growth in them. Part of it is probably because it was underwater for most of the time. But anyone have any comments?
No, this is the one that we went to after 35 Copacabana the other day, right?
Correct. Where
Okay,
the aids are.
Yep.
No, this is 165 where the Beltran boxes were, the bin storage.
Yeah, we went that
Right.
after. We went there on the same day.
Right.
Okay, yeah. All right. Lacking any comment, I'll entertain a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 165 South Main Street.
I will make that motion.
Motion is made,
I'll second it.
motion is seconded. All in favor, Margaret French?
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp?
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Motion passes. All right. 1C, 1 Thomaset Way. This is a solar array that was put up last year. And from all the information we have and from the inspection that Adeline made, she recommends the issuance of the certificate. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made,
I'll second it.
motion is seconded. Margaret French?
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp?
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Motion passes. All right, next item is the continuance of the notice of intent hearing for 1 Bryant's Neck. There's going to be a continuance, but would someone make a motion to reopen the hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made,
I'll second it.
motion is seconded. All in favor, say aye. Margaret French?
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp
Aye.
says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. All right, so now I will accept a motion to continue it to, what do they want, Danielle?
I'll
They
make
said
that, oh,
meeting, so it's December 9th at 6 p.m. at the police station.
Okay, the motion would be December 9th, 6 p.m. Freetown Police Station. Can I have that
Um,
motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made,
I'll second it.
motion is seconded. All in favor, Margaret French?
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp
Aye.
says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Motion is continued. Item number 3, continuing of public hearing for notice of intent 32 Middleborough Road. Again, the applicant is working with environmental partners to come to agreement on the plan. There's a few issues that were brought up by environmental partners. So I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made,
I'll second it.
motion is seconded. All in favor, Margaret French?
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp
Aye.
says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. All right, now, once again, same date
Yep, December 9th.
for our next meeting. So it will be December 6th,
December 9th.
December
at
9th.
6 o'clock at the police station.
December 9th, at the Freetown Police Station at 6 o'clock. May I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made,
I'll second it.
motion is seconded. All in favor? Margaret French?
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp?
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. It's continued. Item number 4, opening of public hearing, notice of intent, 16 Boxberry Lane. Before we get, are all the green cards in?
Yes, green cards are all set.
Okay, the green cards are all set. We need a motion to waive the notice of public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made to waive the reading of the public hearing notice. Do I hear a second?
Yep, I'll second it.
Motion is seconded. Margaret French?
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp?
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. The hearing is open. I understand you, Kenneth, and Christina approve?
Yes.
All right. Can we put the plan up on the screen? You're gonna be able to give us your presentation. Then if there's anyone has any questions, they'll ask the questions and then we'll go from there. All right?
Before we just put plans instead of the revised plans.
Oh. Thank you. Margaret, can you see them?
Not yet.
This is a proposal.
Oh,
Okay, just
I got it.
Okay.
You have it, Margaret?
Yes, I do.
Would you state your name and address?
Kenneth Crew, 3 in the circle in Lakeville. So this is a proposed project, 16 Boxbury Lane. It's an existing undeveloped lot, part of a larger subdivision. So as this part of this proposal, we're looking to clear trees, construct a new residential house, 5 bedrooms with on-site wastewater treatment, private well. That's graded. The original plan showed grading going within the 100-foot buffer zone to the wetlands as well as within the flood zone. After some back and forth with Adeline and Mass DEP, there's some issues with putting that fill in the flood zone, so we revised the plans as shown to include a retaining wall in the backyard, so that there would not be any fill within the flood zone portion. there's still some fill with the buffer zone. The buffer goes to about the corner of the garage. So there's still some fill in there, it's regrading, but not in the flood zone portion.
Okay. I'll start out, I have a question. Is this the squiggly line there, what is that?
The squiggly line going
Yes.
around, that's the edge of the post tree line.
Okay, all right. I don't see any erosion control lines or possible lines where you're going to put erosion control. I see on a picture that you apparently have some of that, but
Yeah, the erosion control is to follow that tree line, but I can add that to the drawing.
all right. Yes, and then beyond this line, so is this all wetland?
Yes.
Um, Okay, I'm good for now. Anyone else have any questions? Margaret, how are you on questions?
I think I'm all set.
Steve? All right, anyone from the public? Hearing none, I'll close that part of it. So I'll close the public portion of the hearing, seeing that there's no one here with any questions. I have some, I'm a little disconcerted, Mr. Prue, in that when Adeline, our agent, went there, apparently there is the work that you're coming before the board to ask for has already been started at least. And that's, that's not the way we should be doing things. Okay, so I'm quite,
I'm sorry.
and I don't know how much experience you have in construction and so forth, but you're apparently doing most of this on your own. And I would think that if you're capable of doing it on your own, then you're aware, or you should be aware of the wetlands laws, and they're not that difficult. Step one is step one. And so I've got an issue with that. Now Adeline hasn't been made aware that this latest plan, has she?
Yes.
She has, but have you presented it to her or just given it to her? Because we haven't gotten anything back from her on this, other than that's what you proposed for the different changes.
Yeah, I sent it to her on Thursday.
Okay, I'm going to recommend that the board continue this hearing for a week, unless you have, are you available for the 9th?
Yes, I'm available.
Okay, and she spoke to you about stopping any work. I'm going to entertain a motion that we order for for formality, a cease and desist order until after the approval or action on this plan. So in other words, no more work.
Okay.
Okay, nothing at
Understood.
all. Okay, we'll send you a letter for the formality, but we see. So there'll be a cease and desist order on this site, and that you make sure that Adeline has the revised plan. We'll talk to her, make sure that she goes over it and gives us her input. And then when you come back for the hearing continuance, we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Would you like me to revise it again to have that erosion control line?
Yes, yes, but we want to do that. It has been flagged.
Yes.
Okay. All right, could I have a motion to, first of all, order a cease and desist order at the property, and then that it be continued to December 9th for our agent to review the revised plan.
All right, I'll make that motion.
All right, motion has been made
I'll second
Motion is seconded. All in favor? Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp
Aye.
says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Motion, hearing is continued to, December 9th, those stipulations. All right, okay. Have a good evening. Item number 5, notice of intent, public hearing 44 Elm Tree Drive. It's got to be continued. But in first, may I have a motion to waive the reading of the public notice?
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made.
I'll second it.
Motion is seconded. Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. The hearing is open. And a motion to waive the reading of the notice.
We just did that.
Did we, okay. I didn't know if I had said, I did the two. All right. Now, can I have a motion to continue it to December 9th?
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion is
I'll
made,
second it.
motion is seconded. All in favor? Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp
Aye.
says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Hearing is continued to December 9th. Are you from Mount Hope? Okay. Why don't we to kind of make it a little bit more convenient and cut to the chase, so to speak. We're gonna go with the item number 7 on the agenda, the request for the notice of intent for the building of the garage. And then we'll come back to number 6.
Have the green cards?
Okay.
These are green cards for both the addition and. the
Oh, yes, yeah, which
Um,
I verified the mail receipt, so we're all set.
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. If you would state your name for the record.
Robert Peruzzi, from Mount Hope Engineering. Representing Mr. Bisho.
Okay, can we get that up on the screen?
Yes. Are we doing the subdivision first or the garage?
The garage.
Garage. Oh. Can you see it, Margaret?
Yes, I can.
Perfect.
All right, I will accept the motion that we open the public hearing for 11 Walnut Street. There.
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion has been made. Motion is seconded. Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Public hearing is open. Now a motion to waive the reading of the notice.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made.
I'll second.
Motion is seconded. All in favor? Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. We waive the reading of the public notice. All right, sir, if you would just be so kind as to state your name and for the record.
Robert Peruzzi, I'm from Mount Hope Engineering, the engineer of record for Mr. Bisho.
All right, if you just give us a little bit of a rundown on
Okay.
what you propose.
The board may remember this, it came in
Yes.
about a year ago.
Deja vu all over again, as you'll be back.
Yep, Claudette had to drop the project because of the the 2-year performance guarantee on the growing of plants. She had already bought another property and she needed to sell this one. She couldn't really afford to sit on it for 2.5 years. So she sold it. Mr. Bisho bought it. He wants to continue with the subdivision. But he's gonna live in this house and he wants a garage. So he's got some plans designed up to kind of revamp the kitchen there where it attaches on the end and add a 2-car garage, 24 by 30. It unfortunately does end up just a little bit closer than 50 to the nearest wetland flag, but it's really just a small finger on the end of the wetland. Ends up at 48.6. I prefer to have 50.
All right, anything else?
I don't think so. We've proposed, erosion control. Move the property line a little bit from what we had last year, just to make sure we had enough room around the garage to swing and get a car in there.
All right. There's no one from the general public here tonight to ask questions, so we'll go by that. And does anyone in the commission have any questions they want to ask?
I'm all set.
All right. You sure, Margaret? Sounded a little shaky there.
No, I'm okay.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay, all right, good. All right, yes, it's relatively cut and dry. The agent has recommended approval. So unless
Oh.
someone else,
Are
go
we
ahead.
going to suggest not mowing right up to that wetland line and leaving that vegetative buffer?
I would think that that would be a condition we would put on it, yes.
Okay. Okay.
So, anyone have any, no one has any other questions? All right, I will entertain a motion. And Margaret, if you want to make that part of your motion.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so the motion is to recommend the notice, the approval of notice of intent with the stipulation that we have, how much would you suggest, Margaret, for footage?
I don't know, maybe a 2 foot. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think it has to be much, just enough to separate it.
Would you say 10 feet? Would that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, with the stipulation of a 10-foot buffers, no touch buffer zone around the finger, as you referred to it as. Probably both at the top of the plan and down here also on the other little finger.
I think that's in keeping with how Claudette.
Yeah.
Mowed it anyway.
Right, yeah. I have a pretty good visual on the property itself, so. All right, with that in mind, the motion has been made to approve the notice of intent with the stipulation that a 10-foot buffer zone, no mow, no touch around the wetlands. Do I? Okay, motion has been made. Motion has been seconded. Margaret French. Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Motion passes. All right, now to the little bit more ticklish issue. I will accept a motion to begin the public hearing for 11 Walnut Street for the subdivision.
I'll make that motion.
Motion has been made,
I'll second that.
motion has been seconded. Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Now may I have a motion to waive the notice of the reading of the public, oh, reading of the public notice,
I'll make that motion.
more or less, right, Margaret?
Yeah.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, Margaret French?
Aye. Oh, sorry, aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp
Aye.
says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. We waive the notice of public reading. Once again, if you would,
Robert Peruzzi from Mount Hope Engineering, representing Mr. Bisho.
all right, and
This is essentially exactly the same as the subdivision that you approved last year.
Uh-huh.
We just changed the name.
Uh-huh.
Hate to say it, but I think we're gonna have to continue because we didn't get comments back from DEP and I forgot to send paperwork to DEP.
What you dropped off today?
When I dropped off
Okay.
today, I saw your email just before I came in.
Yeah, okay,
I forgot to send it to DEP. I'll have to do that tomorrow.
Okay.
morning. But everything on this is the exact same. The area for fill, the width, all the grading, everything's the same. I changed the name and we moved the lot line between lot 1 and lot 2 a little bit to accommodate the garage.
is it? No. Nicole, could you bring up the subdivision plan? Is there-
yeah, that's,
Oh, okay.
yep, that's it.
The only thing, where is the mitigation area? I remember it,
It's over
Okay.
to towards the main road, right where it says, lot 2, I think.
okay.
So lot 2 up in the middle,
Lot 2
Oh,
is.
I'm
up there,
sorry,
so
not
lot
lot 1.
one.
Yeah, I guess it's lot.
All right,
I'm having trouble seeing it, and I'm looking at a different sheet.
I can-
Okay, yeah, it's right above the arrow,
okay.
the
Right here,
cursor,
Okay,
yep.
that's why.
See the 3,200 something replication area?
Okay, now I
Right-
see.
Right there in the middle.
Okay. I think you have a photograph, a photocopy of this a few more times than you want. But, all right, yeah, okay, now we got the information about the stream. And
Yeah.
it is not a perennial stream.
Yes.
Okay, so we're good there. So the only thing I think we really got a need from you at a later date is just the area, you do have, I've been reading so much today. Did you give us a rundown on the plants that you wish?
Yes, it's in the report that Byron Holmes wrote.
Okay, all right, because,
That first 4 pages. I think I'm gonna have to reprint that.
Uh-huh.
I printed it this morning from Word, and it didn't have any photographs in it. I was just looking at it while we were running the other meetings, and I realized that the photos aren't there.
okay, I see the rundown now. Because Mr. Holmes is in 2 cases here, as advisory and so forth. All right, so you wish to have a continuance to,
I
Get
think
the-
you're gonna need to, yeah.
okay, all right. So would the 9th be good for you?
Absolutely.
All right, then we will continue it to the 9th. And go from there. So may I have a motion to continue the public hearing to December 9th at the Freetown Police Station, 6 PM.
I'll make that motion.
Motion has been made, motion is seconded. Margaret French?
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp?
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Do you have everything needed from the planning board?
Not yet.
Not
Our
yet.
meeting is
the 3rd, I think,
Tuesday, the 3rd.
yeah.
Okay, all right, because we would like this, probably the best thing to do is have that complete before you come, before conservation to get approval.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
That's why we try to keep everything exactly the
yeah,
same. so we
I
can
don't,
break through.
I don't know why not, but We don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
while I was running copies, I noticed it says public road on there. I had to get rid of that. It's private road.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Item number 8, to discuss and take our action relative to land donation at 0 Richmond Road, map number 207, lot 038, in Cot Path. This was brought up a couple of months ago, I remember.
As an intent to, for us to purchase it.
Okay.
Now it's a donation.
Okay,
Mike, it looks like Mike's on Zoom
Okay,
as well
all
to
right.
explain. this.
Mike, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, quite well.
Oh, good. I never know with these things if I have to lean into them or not.
Uh-huh.
So yes, this is, you were back in the spring approached about purchasing 2 different properties in the same area. This has now come back, one of them as a straight donation. If you are familiar with the Ice House lot, which the Conservation Commission already owns, that's where the walking path is now and the educational sign. This property abuts that to the north, and the Conservation Commission is the only direct abutter to this property. It's on 2 sides. It's abutted by Forge Pond, or what's left of Forge Pond, and on the 4th side by the railroad. So this is property that is under a conservation restriction currently. It has been in the Richmond family for the better part of 300 years, and they are looking for what to do with it now. And the Conservation Commission, particularly with this parcel as the only real abutter, is obviously who they keep coming back to, because it really would only make sense for it to come to the Conservation Commission in one form or another.
All right, I have a question, Mike. Do you have any documentation in relation to them putting a conservation restriction on the property and so forth? Do you have the recent, I guess I would say, the recent history on the property? Do you have the?
Yes. So the current owner's father, when he owned the property, entered into a conservation restriction with the Wildlands Trust of Southeastern Massachusetts, and that was somewhere in the area of 2010 or 2012. That document is recorded at the Registry of Deeds. It was actually the template for when we entered into our conservation restriction with Copart. That was the document we used as a template for preparing that. And the uses that you would expect to be allowed are allowed. For example, there's obviously a walking path that comes in from Forge Road to our Ice House parcel. Those paths continue onto this parcel, and hiking trails is one of the allowable uses out there. Short of dumping nuclear waste or trying to build something, it's not a heavily restricted parcel. The restriction is meant to preserve it sort of as it is now.
Mike, how much is the area of the property? How many acres?
So it is 20 acres. It includes a small island. It was an island when Forge Pond was more prominent. It's a little bit more of a peninsula now. You can walk between the 2 areas with good boots on. But so it is about 20 acres. The parcel that we have currently to the south of it is about 5.5, a little shy of 6 acres. So it's a pretty sizable addition to what's already there.
All right, and does the property come out? I remember when there was a laneway, basically across from the Richmond Cemetery that went out, and at the time there was a field and so forth. I'm sure it's overgrown now. Is that laneway still part of the property, or is that some part of a lot on Richmond Road now?
So it is part of a lot on Richmond Road, but in the letter where it references a cart path, I'm calling them the Richmond family. They go by a different name now, but that's the family for generations.
Huh.
They retained the right to use that path. The path is subject to the conservation restriction, and the Wildlands Trust had use of the path. Very similar to what happened to us, the MBTA basically shut them out of using it to cross the tracks, which I think is why we still look like a logical recipient of the donation. The only way to get to that property now is to come through ours.
All right, so, okay, yeah, that brings up a different element in the track stuff. So, like, am I correct to say that the property could not easily be developed, so to speak, in any way other than getting a right to cross tracks somewhere along it?
That is correct. Well, because of, if you could hold on 1 second, I think someone's at my front door.
No problem.
Was this huntable property?
What's that?
Is this huntable property?
It is. Do you remember that when there was this lane where they had two stone pillars, I believe, and
I was just out there, wasn't it Vickery's there?
yeah, actually, I would use the landmark of this little cemetery there in Richmond Road. Right across, basically right across, there was an entryway there, you would go over the tracks. There was a good sized field that people used to cut hay on. And then he went down to.
Even right down to the water.
Right, yeah.
Sorry about that. Because of the conservation restriction, the property cannot be developed, say, for building purposes at all. But absent the conservation restriction, I think our zoning would preclude it anyway. The parcel other than that cart path has no frontage on any road. If anything, it potentially may have been able to be developed for solar panels because you can cross the tracks and not necessarily need normal frontage to do that. But the conservation restriction would preclude it from being developed for that purpose either.
All right, Mike, would you mind getting all that information that you have on it together and forward it to the office? We can edit basically ourselves, and then we'll go from there. Does that sound reasonable?
Sure. I can pull the conservation restriction off the Registry of Deeds. Yeah, I think that would tell you the bulk of the information there.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
I think I'm all set.
Okay, am I reasonable when I request that we get to actually see the restrictions and the deed to the property and so forth before we make our final determination?
No, that sounds reasonable.
All right, if that be the case, then we'll continue this, get the documents, see the documents, be able to read the documents, and then make a decision from there. All right, Mike?
Sounds good to me.
All righty.
While I'm here, I'll just throw in the note also. Charlie, you had asked me about contacting Phil Benjamin, the forester, who did the forestry plan at Porter Pasture.
exactly.
So I did talk to Phil last week. He is, for all intents and purposes, retired now, but he turned his business over to the person who had been helping him before,
Okay,
Tom Farrell. And I did talk to Tom briefly this afternoon through email. He is more than willing to come out and work on getting that plan into use. He's just a little tied up right now, so he was going to get back to us probably after Christmas.
fine. All right. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Oh, you're welcome.
I don't know, maybe you're more persistent than I, but you got through. Maybe you identified yourself differently than I did. All right, that's good news. All right, thanks a lot, Mike.
All right,
Have a good Thanksgiving.
thanks, you too.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
Okay, item number 9, any other business properly to come before the Conservation Commission? Nicole, Chase Road, the people who,
The 173 Chase
yes,
Road?
173.
Yes, last I knew, she had emailed and said that the engineer she hired, I believe out of Brockton, was putting together a plan or something and had come out and done like an inspection and met with them and things. So hopefully that's moving forward.
All right, would you mind just contacting them again and
Yeah.
asking them to have the engineering firm send something to confirm that they are actually doing this work? In the process of doing this work.
Okay,
All right, and then we have nothing on Dr. Burley Road, correct?
no, I
Alright.
haven't heard from
Um,
him since the last meeting.
All right, what's the number? Do you remember what the number on Dr. Burley Road was?
I want to say it's 54, Dr.
Okay.
Burley Road.
All right, 54 Dr. Burley Road, I think the owner was in last meeting and was saying that he hadn't done much of the work that comes into question, but that remains to be seen. He has not contacted us in any shape or form. I would request the board consider a letter of enforcement be sent to, and I think there's a relation, I guess you could say a relationship issue on the property also. So an enforcement letter sent to both or anyone who's listed on the deed.
I believe on GIS, he's the only one that's listed as an owner. There's
Now,
no
as I
co-owner.
remember, that might be the case.
Yeah,
All right, but I would request that we entertain a motion to send an enforcement letter.
I will make that motion.
The motion has been made,
I'll second it.
motion is seconded. Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. All right. All right. Susan, so you heard kind of a little bit of good news there that the forestry plan that we actually had was hopefully going to be able to carry out or start to carry out once we all hook up. And what I envision is first is probably getting in there and cutting the trees down to the ground at least, if not hauling some of them out. We'll try to get a landscaper to do that. My hope would be like January, February. You know, they don't have much work and maybe they'll be able to do that. Is there anything that you had any input you have for the commission?
No, just to, hear what the progress is.
Yeah,
right?
right, yeah.
So
Yeah.
continue to hold on.
And I've been on vacation the last week and a half, but I had spoken to Ron Bob's friend, who has been helping out. And I did tell, he hasn't gotten as 2 weeks ago, he hadn't gotten a contract from Zenith. But we've been plotting them along, and I hadn't gotten a chance to contact him yet, but I was gonna contact, see if he got the contract, and we'll go from there, but it is in progress. And I gave Zenith kind of, I said, we'd like to see it by the 1st of March, see the plan. All right. Now, do you still have a dug well?
I'm sorry?
Do you still have a dug well? Because
Yes.
because I was just, because you had spoken about the water hole on South Main, on Slabridge Road. And I used to have a dug well, and that was the same thing. If that water hole had water in it, you were good. When it didn't have it, you had things, but
I go by the one that's out by the state forest.
exactly, yeah.
So that was, I didn't have to lift my lid, I just had to go out there.
No, right, yeah, exactly. All right, I will accept the motion to adjourn the Conservation Commission meeting for November 25th. And then,
I will make that motion.
all right, but don't go anywhere, right?
No, I know.
Okay, oh,
And I'll
So-
second that.
motion is made and seconded. Margaret French. Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Conservation Commission meeting is adjourned. Now, if we will take up the Soil Conservation Board meeting for Monday, November 25th. And a motion, I will open the meeting, and we will go to item number 1, which is review and vote on renewal permits for, I'll waive the permit numbering, but Janice Marie Way, Chase Road, Copacut Road, Peter Borges, Copacut Road, K.R. Resendes, and Slabridge Road, K.R. Resendes. If you didn't, Janice Marie's Way, nothing has changed one way or the other there. Chase Road, as we can see, nothing has changed. Copacut Road, Peter Borges, the grading, things are all intact, and I think they have already put up the solar array that they plan on that property. The rest of the property, I haven't seen any activity in probably 4 or 5 years that I've been inspecting it. So that is the same way. The two, the Copacut Road property, K.R. Resendes, we saw the slopes are sufficient. All the activity, the only activity I think they're gonna end up there is removing the rock that they've already quarried. They don't have any intention of doing any more quarrying there, but I believe they want the property open there so they can remove the rock. And it involves, as they remove the rock, they're giving tipping fees and so forth. So with that in mind, do I hear a motion?
All right. Hang on. A motion on all 5 of them?
Yeah, we can do that, I think.
Okay. No, I wanted to talk about Janice Marie Way, though.
Go ahead.
So I didn't make it there, but you said it looks the same as last year?
Right.
Nothing's changed?
Nothing has changed to the detriment nor to the good of the property, in that they remove stuff. I don't know if my memory is correct or not, but we did have Mr. Mello come in after we were there last year.
Yes.
He had a little bit of a conversation on what has existed in the previous years. And there is, if you remember, Margaret, there was a wetlands almost to the track on the
Right.
south side.
Yep,
And that was added, that was like a replication area. I had looked at old maps and it wasn't there, we'll say in the 1960s as wetland. So as far as I know, he is holding to what he agreed to do at that property. I don't know that we would agree with former commissions to allow what they did. But it appears that former commissions had, and so he basically has the right to do what he's doing there. That's my take. That's my take, Margaret. Okay,
okay.
it's,
And then my other question is, are we supposed to give permits? Or were we asked not to from the
She's-
water department?
Yeah, she's talking about the water department issued something saying that anything on Janice Marie Way not to give permits. But I don't know where is this is a renewal, how that works,
yeah, all right.
since they haven't
Uh,
submitted an as-built for the water department on their end.
Okay, see, yeah, I'm under the impression, but don't hold me to it, that, it was any new permits.
Okay.
But that in mind, why don't we do this then, Margaret? Why don't you, if you want to, you can make a motion for, permits B through E, and we will hold on to A, and we will check out what, is transpiring with the water department there on Janice Marie. That sound
Okay,
appropriate?
that sounds good to me.
All right.
Yeah.
Do I hear a motion?
I will make that motion.
All right, motion has been made.
I'll second that.
Motion has been seconded. Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Motion passes. And then the minutes for the 12/11/2023 meeting of the Soil Conservation Board. Anyone have any issues with any minutes?
Nope, looks good to me.
All right, then I will accept the motion that to accept the minutes of the December 11th, 2023 meeting of Freetown Soil Conservation Board.
I will make that motion.
Motion has been made.
I'll second it.
Motion has been seconded. Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Motion passes. Any other business to properly come before the board? Anyone have any other business?
I do not.
All right, then how about a motion to adjourn?
I will make that motion.
All right, motion has been
I'll
made.
second that.
Motion has been seconded. Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Meeting is adjourned. All right, folks. Have a good
Aye.
Thanksgiving, Margaret.
You too. Thank you.
Enjoy.
Okay.